They called me selfish. They called me heartless. They said I was tearing the family apart over money. But here's what they didn't say: that my younger brother stole my identity, opened business accounts in my name, and left me drowning in $92,000 of debt I never knew existed. They didn't mention that when I discovered it, he laughed and said I should be grateful he chose me instead of someone outside the family. And they definitely didn't talk about what happened when the lawyer asked my mother one simple question in that courtroom. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Claire, and I'm 31 years old. I work as a medical lab technician at a hospital in Toronto. I've always been the responsible one in my family. While my younger brother Tyler lived at home until he was 28, bouncing between failed business ventures and asking our parents for money, I was out here building my life. I had my own apartment in North York, a decent credit score of 795, and I was finally saving for a down payment on a condo. Tyler is 26 now, and he's always been what you might call the golden child. When he dropped out of university after one semester, our parents said he was finding himself. When he maxed out their credit cards twice, they said he was learning about business the hard way. When he moved back home for the third time, they said family was supposed to support each other through hard times. I loved my brother, I really did. But I'd be lying if I said the favoritism didn't sting sometimes. It was a Tuesday morning in March when my life imploded. I was getting ready for my shift when I got an email notification from my banking app. Credit monitoring alert. My credit score had dropped from 795 to 510 overnight. My hands were shaking as I opened the app. That couldn't be right. I'd never missed a payment in my life. I clicked through to the detailed report, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There were 3 accounts I'd never opened. A business line of credit with TD for $45,000. Another with Scotiabank for $35,000. And a third with RBC for $12,000. All of them opened within the last 14 months. All of them maxed out. All of them listing my name, my social insurance number, and my date of birth. I called in sick to work. I spent the next 6 hours on the phone with banks, credit bureaus, and fraud departments. Every conversation made things worse. Yes, we can see the accounts were opened with your information, the TD representative said. But they were opened in person at our Mississauga branch, with proper identification. I've never been to that branch, I said, my voice cracking. I didn't open these accounts. Do you have any family members who might have access to your personal documents? That's when the pieces started clicking together. Tyler had lived in Mississauga last year, working at some startup that went under after 8 months. And I remembered now, he'd asked to borrow my birth certificate 2 years ago when he said he lost his own and needed it for a job application. I'd given it to him because he was my brother, because I trusted him. I pulled up my credit report again and checked the dates. The first account was opened 23 months ago, right after I'd lent Tyler those documents. The second was opened 14 months ago. The third, 9 months ago. My baby brother had been systematically stealing my identity for nearly 2 years. I drove to my parents' house in Scarborough. Tyler's car was in the driveway, a BMW 3 Series that he'd bought last year. He'd told everyone he got a great deal on it. I wondered now how he'd really paid for it. My mom answered the door. "Claire, sweetheart, what a nice surprise. Come in, come in. Tyler's here too." Tyler was in the living room, playing video games on a massive TV that I also didn't remember him owning. He looked up when I walked in and smiled. "Hey, sis. What brings you by?" I held up my phone, showing him the credit report. "Want to explain this?" His smile didn't even flicker. "Explain what?" "The $92,000 in business loans opened in my name." My mother gasped. My father looked up from his newspaper. Tyler's smile finally faded, but not into shame or guilt, into irritation. "Oh, that," he said, like I'd asked him about borrowing my sweater. "Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that." "You were going to talk to me about committing identity fraud?" "It's not fraud, Claire. We're family. I needed capital for my businesses, and my credit wasn't good enough to get approved. I figured you wouldn't mind, since you weren't using your credit anyway." I couldn't breathe. He genuinely didn't see anything wrong with what he'd done. You figured I wouldn't mind? Tyler, you destroyed my credit score. I can't buy a condo now. I might lose my apartment when my lease is up because landlords check credit. Do you have any idea what you've done? He shrugged. It's just numbers, Claire. Credit scores go back up. It's not like I stole actual money from you. You did steal from me. Every dollar you borrowed in my name, I'm responsible for. My father finally spoke up. Now, Claire, let's not be dramatic. I'm sure Tyler had good intentions. Good intentions? Dad, this is identity theft. It's a criminal offense. My mother rushed over and put her hand on my arm. Sweetheart, you're upset. That's understandable. But Tyler is your brother. I'm sure we can work something out as a family. Work something out? Mom, he committed fraud. Tyler stood up, and for the first time, he looked angry instead of dismissive. You know what, Claire? I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd want to help me succeed. But I guess I was wrong. I guess you're too selfish to help your own brother when he's trying to build something. Selfish? I'm selfish? Yes. You've always had everything together. Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect credit. Did it ever occur to you that some of us aren't as lucky? That some of us need help? You could have asked for help. You could have been honest. And you would have said no. You always do. That wasn't true. But before I could respond, my father intervened. Both of you. That's enough. Claire, go home and cool off. We'll discuss this when everyone's calmer. There's nothing to discuss. I'm reporting this to the police. The room went silent. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father stood up from his chair. Tyler's face flushed red. You wouldn't, Tyler said. Watch me. Claire, my mother said, her voice shaking. You can't be serious. He's your brother. This would ruin his life. He ruined mine first. I left before anyone could say anything else. I filed a police report the next day. The officer who took my statement was sympathetic but not optimistic. Identity theft cases within families are complicated, she said. Even if we can prove he did it, and even if the Crown decides to prosecute, these things take time. Months, maybe years. I don't care how long it takes. I want him charged. The detective assigned to my case, Detective Morrison, called me 3 days later. We've confirmed that your brother opened the accounts. We have him on surveillance footage at 2 of the banks, and the signatures on the applications don't match yours. We're moving forward with charges. Tyler was arrested 2 weeks later. 3 counts of identity fraud, 3 counts of forgery, and 1 count of uttering a forged document. My mother called me that night, sobbing. How could you do this to him? How could you do this to us? Mom, I didn't do anything to him. He did this to himself. You're sending your own brother to jail. No, his own actions are sending him to jail. I'm just refusing to cover for him. She hung up on me. My phone didn't stop ringing. First, my uncle called. Then my aunt. Then my father's brother. Then my mother's sister. One by one, my entire extended family called to tell me I was wrong. That I was vindictive. That I was destroying the family over money. My Uncle Brian left me a voicemail that I'll never forget. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you, Claire. In this family, we take care of our own. We don't send them to jail. If you go through with this, don't bother showing up to any more family gatherings. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tyler had stolen from me, but I was the one being ostracized. My parents organized what they called a family meeting. They invited 12 people, my parents, Tyler, my 2 uncles, my 2 aunts, 3 of my cousins, and my grandmother. They held it at my parents' house on a Saturday afternoon. I almost didn't go, but I wanted to hear what they had to say. When I arrived, they were all sitting in the living room, like it was some kind of tribunal. Tyler sat between my parents, looking appropriately remorseful now that criminal charges were involved. My father started speaking as soon as I sat down. Claire, we've asked you here because we're concerned about the path you're taking. We understand you're upset, but pressing criminal charges against your brother is extreme. He committed a crime, I said. He made a mistake, my mother corrected. A mistake that we can fix as a family, if you'll just drop the charges. My Aunt Linda leaned forward. Claire, I know Tyler was wrong, but he's willing to pay you back. Aren't you, Tyler? Tyler nodded eagerly. Absolutely. I'll set up a payment plan. I'll give you $500 a month until it's all paid back. I did the math in my head. $500 a month for $92,000 would take him over 15 years. I'd be 47 years old by the time he finished paying me back. And that was assuming he actually made every payment, which seemed unlikely given his track record. That's not good enough, I said. My Uncle Brian scoffed. See? She doesn't want him to make it right. She just wants revenge. I want accountability. There's a difference. My grandmother spoke up for the first time, her voice soft but firm. Claire, dear, I understand you're hurt. But family is forever. Money comes and goes, but you only have one brother. Is this really worth losing him over? Is $92,000 worth losing me over? I shot back. Because nobody seems concerned about what this has done to my life. I can't buy a home. I might lose my apartment. I've spent hundreds of hours on the phone with creditors and lawyers. But sure, let's focus on poor Tyler and his consequences. My father sighed. You're being difficult, Claire. I'm being difficult? I'm the victim here. My cousin Jessica, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. Okay, but it's not like he physically hurt you. It's just credit. Can't you rebuild that? Can I rebuild it? Sure. In 7 to 10 years, assuming I can get all the fraudulent accounts removed and pay off the ones I can't. But why should I have to rebuild anything? I didn't do anything wrong. Tyler finally spoke, and his voice was choked with tears. Real tears this time, not the crocodile ones from earlier. Claire, I'm sorry. I really am. I know what I did was wrong. I was desperate, and I made terrible choices. But I'm begging you, please don't send me to jail. I'll do anything to make this right. Part of me wanted to believe him. He was still my little brother. I remembered teaching him to ride a bike when he was 6. I remembered helping him with his math homework when he was in middle school. I remembered him calling me when his first girlfriend broke up with him, crying on the phone at 2 in the morning. But I also remembered his face when I first confronted him. The casual dismissal, the blame shifting, the complete lack of remorse until the police got involved. If you were really sorry, I said quietly, you would have stopped after the first account. But you didn't. You opened 3 accounts over 2 years. You weren't desperate, Tyler. You were greedy. And the only reason you're sorry now is because you got caught. My mother started crying. Please, Claire, please don't do this. He's my son. I'm your daughter. Why doesn't that matter? Nobody had an answer for that. The meeting ended with my Uncle Brian telling me I was no longer welcome at family gatherings until I came to my senses. Half the room agreed with him. The other half said nothing, which somehow felt worse. I left that house and cried in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive home. The court date was set for June. Tyler's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal where he'd get a suspended sentence and probation if I agreed to drop my victim impact statement. The Crown attorney called me to discuss it. It's your choice, she said. But I should tell you, if we go to trial, there's a chance he gets acquitted. The evidence is strong, but juries are unpredictable, especially in family cases. If he takes the plea deal, he'll have a criminal record and be required to pay restitution. What kind of restitution? That would be determined by the court, but likely a payment plan of what he can reasonably afford. So, another $500 a month situation. I asked what would happen if I insisted on going to trial. If we win, he's looking at potential jail time. Probably not a long sentence for a first offense, but it's possible. The judge could also order more substantial restitution. I told her I'd think about it. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Tyler as a kid, about all the good memories we had before everything went wrong. I thought about my mother's tears. I thought about being excluded from family events for the rest of my life. But I also thought about my destroyed credit score. About the apartment I might lose. About the condo I'd been saving for that was now out of reach. About the hundreds of hours of my life I'd spent trying to clean up his mess. About the fact that he'd looked me in the eye and told me I was selfish for not letting him steal from me. I called the Crown Attorney the next morning. "We're going to trial." The trial was scheduled for late July. I was terrified. I'd never been to court before, except for a traffic ticket when I was 22. But this was different. This was real. Tyler's lawyer was aggressive during pre-trial motions. He argued that the case should be dismissed because it was a family matter that should be resolved privately. The judge denied the motion. He argued that I'd given Tyler permission to use my identity and was now having remorse about that decision. We had to provide phone records and bank statements proving I'd never had any communication with Tyler about the loans. The motion was denied. He argued that I was pursuing the case out of vindictiveness rather than genuine harm. The prosecutor presented evidence of my damaged credit score, my denied condo application, and the notice from my landlord that my lease might not be renewed. The motion was denied. We finally went to trial on July 28th. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, more like a conference room than the dramatic chambers you see on TV. Tyler sat at the defendant's table in a suit I'd never seen before, looking appropriately remorseful. My parents were there. They sat behind Tyler's table, literally on his side of the courtroom. The prosecutor laid out the case methodically. She showed the surveillance footage of Tyler at the banks. She presented the forged application documents with signatures that clearly didn't match mine. She brought in a handwriting expert who testified that there was zero possibility I'd signed those forms. She showed the timeline of the accounts being opened and maxed out, while Tyler was posting on Instagram about his successful business ventures and luxury purchases. Tyler's lawyer tried to argue that I'd given Tyler verbal permission to use my identity and that he genuinely believed he had my consent. He called Tyler to the stand. "Mr. Whitmore," his lawyer said, "can you explain to the court why you opened these accounts in your sister's name?" Tyler's voice was steady, practiced. "I was trying to start a business. I'd had some credit problems in the past, and I couldn't get approved for financing on my own. My sister Claire and I had always been close, and we'd talked before about how she wanted to help me succeed. I honestly believed she'd be okay with me using her credit to get the business started. I planned to pay everything back as soon as the business was profitable. It was a good story. It might have even been convincing if it weren't completely fabricated." The prosecutor cross-examined him. "Mr. Whitmore, you said you and your sister talked about her helping you. Can you provide any text messages, emails, or phone records showing these conversations?" "No, they were all in person." "Interesting. Because phone records show you and your sister barely communicated during the time these accounts were opened. In fact, in the 14-month period between the first and last account opening, you exchanged exactly 12 text messages, all of them about family gatherings or holidays. Does that seem like a close relationship where you'd discussed business financing?" Tyler hesitated. "We talked in person at family events." "I see. And when you opened the first account 23 months ago, did you tell your sister that day?" I don't remember exactly when I told her." "Did you tell her within a week?" "I don't think so." "Within a month?" "Probably not." "Within 6 months?" Tyler was sweating now. "I told her eventually." "Mr. Whitmore, according to your own statement to police, your sister didn't find out about these accounts until she received a credit monitoring alert in March of this year. That's 23 months after the first account was opened. Does that sound like someone who'd given you permission?" "I meant to tell her sooner. I kept putting it off." "Because you knew she hadn't given you permission, didn't you?" "That's not. I thought she'd be okay with it." "You thought she'd be okay with you stealing her identity and destroying her credit score?" Tyler's lawyer objected. The judge sustained it. But the damage was done. Then came my turn on the stand. I was so nervous I could barely breathe as I walked up and was sworn in. The prosecutor asked me to describe what happened, and I told the story as clearly as I could. The discovery of the accounts, the confrontation with Tyler, his complete lack of remorse, the family meeting where I was blamed for his crimes. Tyler's lawyer cross-examined me next. "Miss Whitmore, isn't it true that you and your brother had discussed his business ventures on multiple occasions?" "Yes. At family dinners. He'd talk about his ideas, And isn't it true that you told him you wanted to support him? I said I hoped his business would succeed. That's not the same as giving him permission to commit fraud. But you did give him your birth certificate, didn't you? He said he needed it for a job application because he'd lost his own. So you gave him access to your personal documents? I lent him one document for a specific purpose. That's not consent to steal my identity. Ms. Whitmore, you work in healthcare, is that correct? Yes, I'm a medical lab technician. You make a comfortable salary? I make enough to live on. About $68,000 a year, correct? I didn't know where he was going with this, but I answered honestly. Yes. And your brother was struggling financially during this time, wasn't he? I don't see what that has to do with anything. Please just answer the question. Yes, he was struggling. You knew he was struggling. You had the means to help him, but you chose not to. Isn't that correct? The prosecutor objected immediately. Relevance, Your Honor? The judge agreed. Sustained. Move on, counselor. But Tyler's lawyer had made his point. He was trying to paint me as the bad sister who wouldn't help her struggling brother, forcing him to take desperate measures. The prosecutor called me back for redirect. Miss Whitmore, did you have any obligation to give your brother $92,000? No. Did he ever ask you directly for that money? No. If he had asked, would you have given it to him? I couldn't have. I don't have $92,000. I'm still paying off my own student loans. So, to be clear, your brother took something from you that you didn't have to give and wouldn't have been able to give even if you'd wanted to? Yes. Then the prosecutor did something I wasn't expecting. She called my mother to the stand. I watched my mom walk up to the witness box, her hand shaking as she was sworn in. She looked older somehow, more fragile than I remembered. The prosecutor's questions were gentle at first, establishing my mother's relationship to both Tyler and me, asking about our childhood, our family dynamics. Then she asked, Mrs. Whitmore, you were present when your daughter confronted your son about these fraudulent accounts, correct? Yes. Can you describe your son's reaction? My mother hesitated. He was surprised. Upset that Claire was upset. Did he express remorse? Long pause. He said he was sorry. When did he say he was sorry? Immediately, when confronted. Or later. My mother's eyes were watering. Later. After Claire said she was going to call the police. So when he was first confronted, what was his reaction? He said it wasn't a big deal. That Claire was overreacting. And you, Mrs. Whitmore, what did you say when you found out your son had stolen $92,000 in your daughter's name? Silence. My mother looked at Tyler, then at me, then back at the prosecutor. I don't remember exactly. Let me refresh your memory. According to your daughter's statement, you said, and I quote, Tyler is your brother. I'm sure we can work something out as a family. Is that accurate? Yes, something like that. So your first instinct wasn't to ask if your daughter was okay, or to express shock at your son's crime, but to find a way to keep it within the family? Tyler's lawyer started to object, but my mother answered before he could finish. I was trying to keep my family together. Mrs. Whitmore, are you here today to testify on your son's behalf? Yes. Despite the fact that he committed a serious crime against your daughter? He's my son. I love both my children, but Tyler needs me right now. And your daughter doesn't? My mother's voice broke. Claire has always been strong. She doesn't need me the way Tyler does. The prosecutor paused, letting that statement hang in the air. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Mrs. Whitmore, if someone outside your family had done this to your daughter, stolen her identity, destroyed her credit, left her with nearly $100,000 in debt, would you want that person prosecuted? My mother opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Answer the question, please, the judge said gently. Yes, my mother whispered. Of course I would. Then why is it different because it was your son? My mother started crying. Real, broken sobs that shook her whole body. Because he's my baby. Because I'm his mother. and mothers are supposed to protect their children, even when they hurt your other child? My mother couldn't answer. She just sat there, crying, and I watched her face transform as she realized what the prosecutor was showing her. That she'd been protecting Tyler at my expense. That she'd asked me to absorb the damage of his crimes to save him from consequences. That she'd chosen him over me without even realizing she was making a choice. The prosecutor's voice was soft when she asked her next question. Mrs. Whitmore, if your daughter had done this to your son, would you be here testifying on her behalf? And my mother, to her credit, told the truth. No, I wouldn't. The courtroom was absolutely silent. No further questions, the prosecutor said. Tyler's lawyer tried to redirect, asking my mother about Tyler's good qualities, his intentions, his remorse now, but the damage was done. The jury had seen a mother admit that she loved her children differently, that she held them to different standards, that one of them had gotten away with hurting the other because that's just how things were in our family. My father was called next. He tried to be more composed than my mother, but the prosecutor broke him down too. She asked about the family meeting, about the pressure put on me to drop the charges, about the fact that I'd been excluded from family events for refusing to let my brother's crime go unpunished. Mr. Whitmore, did it concern you that your daughter might lose her apartment because of what your son did? Of course it concerned me. Did you offer to help her with rent while she sorted out her credit? Pause. No. Did you offer any financial assistance at all? No. But you helped your son hire a lawyer? He needed legal representation. And your daughter didn't need help? My father's jaw tightened. Claire has always been independent. Is that why you thought it was acceptable to ask her to forgive a $92,000 debt because she's independent? No answer. Did you ask your son to pay your daughter back before charges were filed? We discussed it. What was his plan? He said he'd pay her $500 a month. Did you think that was adequate? $500 a month for $92,000? That's over 15 years of payments. It was what he could afford. Did you offer to help him pay your daughter back faster? My father looked down. No. So, to be clear, you had the resources to help your son hire a lawyer, but not to help him pay back the money he stole from your daughter? We were trying to keep him out of jail. By asking your daughter to sacrifice her financial future? My father had no answer for that either. The prosecutor rested her case. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Tyler's sentencing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. In that time, my parents didn't call me. Neither did any of my extended family. It was like I'd ceased to exist. The sentencing hearing was on September 15th. Tyler's lawyer argued for leniency, presenting character witnesses who talked about his potential, his remorse, his plans to turn his life around. My parents both spoke, begging the judge for mercy. Then I gave my victim impact statement. I'd written and rewritten it dozens of times. I talked about the financial damage, the emotional toll, the destroyed family relationships, the fact that I'd lost not just my credit but my support system because I'd refused to let my brother's crime go unpunished. But what I kept coming back to was the unfairness of it all. That I'd done everything right, lived responsibly, worked hard, and I was being punished. While Tyler, who'd lied and stolen and shown no remorse until he was facing consequences, had an entire family rallying around him asking for mercy. I don't want my brother to go to jail, I said, looking at the judge. I want my brother to take responsibility. I want him to understand that actions have consequences. I want my family to understand that protecting someone from the results of their choices isn't love. It's enabling. And I want to know that if I ever have children, they'll grow up in a world where stealing $92,000 from your sister is treated as the serious crime it is, not as a family matter that should be swept under the rug. The judge listened to everything, then delivered her sentence. 4 years in prison, suspended after 18 months. 3 years of probation following release. Full restitution to be paid at a rate of $2,000 per month starting upon release from prison, or $1,000 per month if he could prove financial hardship. Mandatory financial counseling, mandatory family counseling if all parties agreed. Tyler broke down sobbing. My mother collapsed in her seat. My father just stared straight ahead, his face blank. I felt nothing. Just empty. The judge spoke directly to Tyler before dismissing court. "Mr. Whitmore, you're extremely fortunate that your sister is as resilient as she is. Some people never recover from what you've done. You stole more than money from her. You stole her trust, her security, and her family support system. I hope you spend your time in custody reflecting on the difference between asking for help and taking what doesn't belong to you." Court is adjourned. I walked out of that courtroom and sat in my car for a long time. I thought about calling my mother, trying one more time to make her understand, but I knew it wouldn't matter. In her eyes, I'd sent her baby to prison. That was all she could see. 6 months later, I got a letter from Tyler. It came from Collins Bay Institution in Kingston. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. It was 3 pages long, handwritten. He talked about his time inside, the programs he was taking, the counseling he'd started. He talked about how angry he'd been at first, how he'd blamed me for everything. But then his cellmate, a guy serving time for embezzlement, asked him a question that apparently changed his perspective. He asked me, "If your sister had done this to you, would you have forgiven her?" Tyler wrote. And I realized the answer was no. I wouldn't have. I would have been furious. I would have wanted her punished. But I expected you to just absorb it because that's what you've always done. You've always been the stable one, the reliable one, the one who cleans up everyone else's messes. And I took advantage of that. I'm sorry, Claire. I'm genuinely sorry. Not because I got caught, not because I'm in prison, but because I hurt you, and I didn't even care until I was forced to see it from your perspective." He went on to say he didn't expect me to forgive him, that he understood if I never wanted to see him again. He just wanted me to know that he was taking responsibility now, truly, not just in a "sorry I got caught" way. I read that letter 5 times. I wanted to believe it, but I also remembered all the other times Tyler had seemed sorry, seemed changed, only to go right back to his patterns. I wrote back. 1 page. I told him I appreciated the apology, but that trust had to be rebuilt through actions, not words. I told him I hoped he was genuinely working on himself. And I told him that maybe, in a few years, we could try to rebuild some kind of relationship, but it would never be what it was before. It's been 2 years since the trial. Tyler was released 4 months ago after serving his 18 months. He's working as a shift manager at a grocery store in Ottawa, living in a bachelor apartment, and making his restitution payments on time. He sends me proof of payment every month, even though the court just requires him to pay the court directly. We have coffee once every few months. The conversations are awkward, careful. We talk about safe things mostly. Work, weather, neutral family news. We don't talk about the past unless he brings it up, which he does sometimes, always to apologize again, to acknowledge what he did. Last month, he told me he started giving talks at community centers about financial fraud and family crime. I want people to understand that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, he said. And I want families to understand that protecting someone from consequences isn't the same as helping them. I don't know if we'll ever be close again. That little brother who I taught to ride a bike is gone. The person who replaced him has a criminal record and a long road ahead of him. But at least now he's walking that road himself instead of expecting me to carry him. My parents and I are in family counseling. It's a condition I set for having any relationship with them at all. It's hard. My mother still sometimes slips into old patterns, minimizing what Tyler did or suggesting I was too harsh. But she's trying. She's starting to understand that love doesn't mean protecting people from their own choices. My father is quieter in sessions, but he's there. That's something. My Uncle Brian sent me a Facebook message 6 months ago, apologizing for how he treated me. Apparently, his own son got arrested for drunk driving, and Brian wanted the book thrown at him. His wife pointed out the hypocrisy of demanding accountability for his son but not for Tyler. He said he understood now why I did what I did. I appreciated the apology, but I haven't gone to a family gathering yet. Maybe next year. My credit score is up to 680 now. It's taken 2 years of dispute letters, police reports filed with credit bureaus, and constant monitoring. I'm still not where I was, but I'm getting there. I've started looking at condos again. Small ones, nothing fancy, but mine. Where am I watching from? Toronto, Ontario. It's 8:47 p.m. on a Wednesday night. I'm in my apartment, which I managed to keep thanks to my landlord being understanding about the situation. I'm drinking tea and thinking about everything I've learned these past 2 years. I learned that family isn't defined by blood or by who shows up for you in good times. Family is who shows up when things are hard and you're not the easiest person to love. Family is who holds you accountable while still holding your hand. I learned that protecting someone from consequences is the cruelest form of love because it prevents them from growing into the person they need to be. I learned that you can't sacrifice yourself to save someone else. They have to want to be saved, and they have to do the work themselves. And I learned that being called vindictive by people who enabled your abuse is actually a sign you're doing something right. The people who benefit from you staying quiet will always call your honesty divisive. If someone in your family is stealing from you, lying to you, or abusing your trust in any way, you are not obligated to protect them from consequences. You are not selfish for standing up for yourself. You are not vindictive for refusing to be a doormat. Family isn't a free pass to harm people without accountability. Love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's dysfunction wearing a disguise. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for someone is to let them face the natural results of their own choices, even when it breaks your heart to do it. Especially when it breaks your heart to do it.